Y'all forgive me for these cheesy, like selfie style videos. I hate doing selfie stuff like this, but I'm on the road and I am excited to get these first video podcasts out and don't have another solution in front of me right now. So we're on to the second video podcast and also the second in our Innovators series. We have a very worthy, very exciting guest today, Cedar Build out of Austin, Texas. This is an extremely talented group of architects and thought leaders that we have gotten assembled today to talk to their leadership team and really dive into what drives them, what sort of ideas they're looking at and excited about. This is a group that my company is going to be working with, and they have really changed and challenged my way of thinking in the last few months as I've gotten to know them, such that I'm now going to be doing and looking for a little bit higher density quality development to take on myself. Now we're still going to be doing our kind of our bread and butter single family luxury homes, but I really see a need and an opportunity to do some higher density product as well. And that was thanks to this team that you're about to meet here at Cedar Build. So hope you guys enjoy the conversation.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks for having us, Jared.
Yeah.
This is the inaugural video podcast. So
Yep. Yeah. And it was a long time coming. My fault that we kept kicking the can down the road trying to get this thing scheduled.
You've been busy finishing homes. So
Yeah.
Building and finishing homes.
Yeah.
So we started Cedar 3 years ago, maybe a little over 3 years ago now. And, it was me, my friend Nate, who's not here virtually, and then another friend, Raul. And we all met in grad school, in architecture school about 10 years ago. So we've been designing and building buildings together for a long time. Always had a really strong focus on how software and algorithms, sort of just thinking about buildings as software as much as you're thinking about them as sketches and design, could really drive a new approach to what we say is productizing design, effectively making design more scalable, and making it more of an approach where you're not starting every project over from zero, right? That every project learns from the other, right? And so or from the past projects. And so we were really focused on this. And then, at the same time, AI was really starting to become mainstream. Not quite yet, 2021, 2022, but we were using it in our work. But it wasn't really known kind of to the general public, to the AEC industry, architecture, engineering, construction industry. And so we sort of saw the writing on the wall and we're like, this is the best time to go start a business in the architecture industry with technology like this kind of at its core. So we quit our jobs. Raul and I were at SOM, kind of a capital A architecture firm.
Where was that?
Chicago.
Okay.
Chicago. Yeah. So we moved to Austin along with everyone else. But
how did you guys pick Austin?
I would love to say we were very scientific about it. Raul moved here kind of on a whim because, it's kind of the exciting place to be in 2020, 2021. And, I think it made a ton of sense. I think it was serendipity that we moved here because, I've fallen in love with the place. And we've gotten somewhat lucky. And again, I think it was just the right timing that Austin is kind of on the front end of all of the zoning reform and all of the land use reform that is now making it possible to really rethink the way we look at and build houses in the city, right? Infill development, as they say. The changes over the last few years have been incredible with allowing 2-3 homes on any single family zone lot, form and compatibility, corridor zoning, just kind of goes on and on and on. So again, there's just kind of this convergence that's really happening in Austin primarily. You see it in other cities in the country, but I think Austin's on the front end of both zoning reform and also this kind of excitement around, what technology and what kind of innovative architecture can do for urban design and infill development more broadly.
Yeah.
We're also very lucky. Nate, our third co-founder, was an early leader in the generative design group at Autodesk, which is kind of the AEC industry's big software provider. So we had this software background and that allowed us to build kind of this hybrid approach when we came here.
And he's the guy that's really behind the software that you all offer.
Yeah, he's our CTO.
Yeah.
He's built software for our industry, so he knows what it takes to build the kind of software that you would ship to thousands of design and engineering professionals so that they can go design buildings on a daily basis.
And you guys are really kind of a multifaceted architecture firm insofar as you're offering design and architecture services, but then you also have the software that I find really compelling and like a real value add to the entire industry in terms of being able to really search and vet and find, like, I guess, properties with really high development potential. So you talk a little bit about those different kind of aspects of the company.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get into the architecture side of what we're doing here at Cedar, so this is a good segue. We really started by wanting to reimagine the nature of an architecture firm, kind of from first principles, and an architecture firm focused on infill development and partnering with builders like yourself to deliver the highest quality projects in very complex regulatory and just kind of context settings like building in cities. Every parcel is different. Neighborhood rules change by what side of the street you're on, permitting, and all of the associated issues with that. It's an incredibly complicated and risky endeavor. And so, from the beginning, we were really focused on how do we build an architecture firm from the ground up to solve this problem. And it turns out software is key to that, because for us, it's allowed us to map all of these conditions, both kind of geometrically, but also from a regulatory standpoint. We index all of the land use regulations in our platform, and that makes it easy for builders and developers to quickly work with us to solve the what can I build here problem. That's incredibly complicated, and oftentimes the what can I build here takes 2 years to really sort out, because you've got to work with your architecture and engineering team to work through kind of all those myriad of regulations, and the permit is really what says this is what you can build here. So a lot of it has been, how do we build as much software as possible to bring as much data to the process alongside the architects on our team, so that we can get to a high fidelity design at kind of the acquisition and feasibility stage where it is the most powerful.
And you guys have the software set up to where it's got a lot of depth to it in Austin.
Yeah.
And I believe in a few other cities, right? Not just Austin, Dallas as well, or San Antonio, where you have same kind of multiple layers of depth. But then, I mean, it's really available with some functionality and capacity across the whole country, correct?
Yeah, we've got 26,000, just over 26,000 municipalities on the platform. We started with just...
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish Nate isn't here because he's working on it right now. Shout out, Nate.
Just got him in a closet with windows.
All the other engineers. No, I mean, in reality, I don't want to get too much into the details, but Google they tried to do this like 12 years ago with a company called Flux Metro here in Austin. And they digitized, I think like half, or like maybe it was like 5,000 sections of the land development code here in Austin, for downtown. And they ended up saying this was too hard. I mean, Google, right? It just, the unit economics didn't make sense. It was too hard of a problem to solve, and then didn't scale well because of that. But with AI today, what was kind of $1 million, $1.5 million in engineering fees to build a product like that is now $20 to $30 in tokens, AI tokens. So doesn't mean that anyone can go out there and build it tomorrow. It just means that when you have expertise, you can bring that expertise to bear on the platform. Now it makes it much more feasible to identify the rules and regulations that are really going to impact development yield, and then to make those visible on the parcels that are impacted by it in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are also, I don't know how much this is like an intentional or kind of like a central thesis for what you guys are doing, but I've always looked at y'all as someone that's helping solve a problem societally with trying to provide for this kind of missing middle. So that's something that was really like the central focus for you guys when you launched the company, or is that just something that has kind of ensued as a result of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to pass
Yeah,
this over to Kristen and talk about
sure.
infill development. I will just say though
Yeah.
that when we started Cedar, this was kind of post-pandemic or like right after the pandemic, and I think most of the United States was still kind of like let's move to the suburbs mode.
Yeah.
And we have always been urbanists at our core, not like radical urbanists. We just really love cities. We love the concept of diverse, rich neighborhoods. The neighborhood commons. We just really believe in city building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's kick it over to you then,
sure.
Kristen, and maybe start with an intro and then we'll jump
Sure.
into that.
Yeah, so my name's Kristen Padovic. I'm the director of design at Cedar. And my background is actually in the thing that computers are going to hopefully take over someday from me, but in very intensive land planning in urban infill markets. So I was the head of design at Cedar Build for 12 years. And prior to that, I had done housing in every place I'd lived. I've always been very passionate about housing. And I think when the years I spent at Story Built, we spent a lot of time standardizing our processes to make it easier to do really high quality, well designed, thoughtful placemaking in just about any neighborhood in any city. So that was our focus. And we thought, we were able to do that by standardizing processes, by having, a standard spec that we started from, by having standardized plans. And then every project that we came along, we crafted those to fit the site. And so I think we weren't using computers to do that. We weren't using software, but we were thinking along those lines, the sort of that productization route, that we're able to provide things faster, cheaper to the market if we're really thinking about trying to take out all of the drudgery that really bogs down the architectural process. So in joining Cedar, I was able to bring that actual expertise of that land planning and be able to sort of at first helping them see sort of red flags on sites. And the math might say we can do this, but I can see by looking at the site that these are going to be the problems, and really building the software around that, the actual scenarios we're looking at, the actual land. So that's been a big part of my role here, and then just developing our architecture team. But the mission at the heart of it is we can provide housing that's higher quality, more predictable, easier to build if we are really using software to kind of solve that 80-20 problem. So that's a huge part of the mission.
So inside your company, whenever you're designing a project, hopefully we're going to be working on our first one together here soon, you design this kind of custom one-off solution, like it's what we're going to have to do for the project we're looking at together. But then I'm guessing that Nate and the rest of the team somehow take that knowledge that you're kind of building for that particular project and then learn
Yes.
from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
And that's really where, I mean, we don't want to throw around the term AI too much here, but effectively allows us to build a catalog of products, right? Buildings as products that capture every project we've ever done. So we do a project together, we develop plans, we sort of work through that process, we develop a design, we learn from it, we build it, we learn more. And then the next project, we have all of that data in a format that allows us to quickly deploy the next iteration of that design. But we're just never starting from zero, right? We're constantly building and expanding this catalog of design types. That's just getting better and better over time, just like a product would.
All right, well, Dan, we got to bring you into the conversation here.
Sure.
But I was actually going to say as a segue, like I think we're thinking about design and placemaking. I think Dan's role, having been with me at Storybuilt for many years, is really bringing the constructability piece into the repeatability piece. So, we want to repeat things over and over again that are fabulous details that builders actually want to build. And him having a construction background allows us to bridge that. So, that was my intro to you.
Yeah, I came to Austin in 2014. I was in LA kind of building my craft from about 2001 till then. And I worked on high-end custom residential homes, similar to, the work that you do. Towards the end, got into hospitality, worked on hotels, high-end restaurants. We did core and shell work. We did some TIs. So I really have like a huge breadth of project experience. But the bulk of it came from custom, one-off, never been done before, may never be done again, boutique projects. I always had an artistic background. I had a little bit of like a drafting experience sort of like early in life. And so in those projects, I ended up becoming, unlike a lot of be kind of careful with my words, but unlike a lot of construction guys, I didn't see the architect as the enemy. I saw them as a partner. And so same thing with engineers. So I would come up with engineering solutions, design solutions. I would draft them up. I would share them, and we would work through what could be built well. And then we would execute it, and just built on that throughout my career. And then, got through 2007, 2008, the same way everybody else did. We luckily got hired back on to finish a restaurant that was half done. So I got lucky there. And for me, just in LA, I felt like things were not progressing. Felt like I'd hit a plateau. And so set my eyes on Austin, which in 2014, I remember they were saying like there were 20 people moving from LA every day back then. So I was just like I was one of the bad ones. But nobody wanted me. And I got lucky. My realtor gave my resume to the construction guy at a small company called PSW back then of 20 people. So I started there, and I was actually just building homes at the kind of low end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And
not so small for very long.
Yeah. And I was like looking around, and I saw that we weren't doing a really good job developing our land. And so after I finished my first community, which Kristen designed, we worked through that. So we've been working together for a really long time now. I said, look, you guys need a land development manager, and I'm the guy. And so I managed that. I basically created the department, and then got really, really deep, the same level of detail as I did with the high-end residential work, but except for land development. Entrenched myself, pun intended, in all of that for, heavy for about 2.5 years. And then, became director of construction over there. And we were doing about 100 homes a year between Austin and San Antonio. And I was managing the whole program, from purchasing to construction to warranty, customer care.
And then we stole him to the architecture team.
Yeah, in the last couple of years, I was technical director on the architecture team. So then we got to work even closer, and really, like, just to get out of that, I know it's like a lot to share, but like, I said this a little bit earlier as a foreshadow, but like what I care about is us designing homes that can be built well. Like, I say that phrase a lot because it's really important. It's not just enough to design a good home if it can't be built well. And, also, I want to be our builder's favorite architect.
Well, and you're that bridge between the architects and the builder/developers, correct? I mean,
yeah.
Because you understand both sides of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I spent a lot of time with, the heads of departments at the city in Austin. The arborists, watershed, did a big project in Bolden Creek, actually literally in the creek, which is a very challenging place to build.
I would imagine.
And, just being able to interface and know what they want and come into it, understanding their needs and also understanding what we need to get done, and fusing those two so that it doesn't have to be a battle is really the approach that I take. And I think that it's just not as common as it should be. Again, not everybody has to be an enemy. The city doesn't have to be an enemy. We can work with what they want. And if we understand the rules as well or better than they do, then our outcomes are better.
Yeah. There's a term that I don't remember who the guy is that came up with it, but one of my old guests on this podcast, his name is David Gerstel, and he introduced me to this idea of what they call integrated project management. And it's something similar to what you're talking about, where it's like, as opposed to these adversarial relationships between all of the different stakeholders within a project, it's more of a team-based approach. And, you know, it's hard to, you gotta understand and appreciate the natural misalignment, because there is a natural misalignment. And, you know, I mean, the first step to improving any situation is first kind of identifying the problem and the facts. And, you know, so architect, construction, engineer, interior designer, everybody's going to have their own focus. But if you can have a team that has that mentality, it completely changes the dynamic.
I'll probably regret saying this, but most people hate working with Austin Energy. There, I said it.
I don't think that's going too far out.
I've had really good success with them, because early on I did their work for them, and then I presented it and I said, this follows your rules. This is what we would like to do. What do you think? Instead of, you know, waiting for them to give us something and us saying, oh, we don't like that, that doesn't work. Because their time is their most precious resource, right? They only have so much time to spend on a design. That's everybody in, you know, a bureaucracy. They have to do exactly as somebody told them to do. There's boxes to check, there's a thing to do. And so, I don't know, just that proactive approach, a supportive approach of, I know what you're going through, and I can help us get through this faster, and we can get the outcome we want, and you can get through it faster. So everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, let's switch topics for just a minute. Let's talk about, you guys are really on the forefront of these regulatory changes. You are the ones that really educated me on some of the opportunity now that has been unlocked with the new Austin Home Code, with the latest legislative sessions. I think it'd probably be beneficial for those listening out there just to kind of hear a little bit about what's happening here. We got a lot of people that are going to be listening that are outside Texas, but I still think it's valuable to kind of understand what's going on here, because it feels like this is kind of a current that is starting to pick up that hopefully will spread to other jurisdictions, other states as well. It's nice that we're kind of on the forefront. You know, you never thought that Austin, like the biggest NIMBY city out there, maybe besides like San Francisco, whatever, you know, be on the forefront. But here we are. So
it's funny when you go on Twitter or X or whatever, you know, choose your social media platform of choice. You know, if you've been working in Austin 2022 onwards, you would read what you see and you would think Austin is the most progressive land use city in the country. This is what you're saying. This is my perspective of things. But then, you know, I talked to anybody who went through Code Next or just in general has worked in Austin for 10 years. It's really hard to like sort of understand the difference, you know, or to square the difference, because, you know, at a national level, people look to Austin now as kind of, you know, a lodestar.
Like a case study.
Yeah. And everyone here is like, you know, have you seen, you know, have you tried to permit a home? I mean, and still Austin has a long ways to go on. There's the policy side, right? And there's the permitting side. And you've got a lot of good podcasts around the challenges of permitting over the years. I think on the permitting side, Austin's trying to get a little bit more caught up. But yeah, on the regulatory side, I think we'll be, if we have a podcast a few years from now, we'll look back and we'll say, wow, that really was the first couple of years of a nationwide shift in land use policy. And I mean, going back, I guess, like, you know, just kind of ground it, you know, we had kind of the pre-war era, you know, and then everyone came back and we all kind of moved to the suburbs, or a large percentage of us moved to the suburbs, or we moved to kind of vacant land, and everyone wanted kind of their half acre and, you know, one home, one street and non-mixed use neighborhoods. So post-war period, we kind of, we shifted land use policy, and we created a lot of land use policy, and that has really locked up cities, and really made it difficult for cities to provide the supply that would bring people back from the suburbs. And I think now we've kind of reached this critical mass where people want to be much closer to urban cores. You know, they want to be closer to where they work, where their friends are, where the natural amenities are. And so now, you know, cities, I think we're kind of entering this like third paradigm of American land planning where we're going to make it easier to build in the cities again. And I'm not going to say everyone's moving back. I mean, people should live where they want to, of course, but we're creating we're creating more opportunities in cities now.
And that, according to you all, is that one of the big drivers of the lack of affordability that the country's facing right now? Is it the restrictive zoning policy over the last 70, 80 years that have driven people out, made kind of this NIMBY movement where you can't really build density in a lot of places, and so therefore simply have higher prices, or what would be the cause of that? I know it's a deep,
There's
complex.
a lot. I mean, we could start with the Interstate Highway Act, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a big one.
that's a huge one. That was my thesis in college.
I haven't heard much about this. I'd like
About
to
the
hear
Interstate
more.
Highway Act?
Yeah.
So, well, it was the post-war era
Yeah,
when they, you know, we decided to pave all the roads and build highways throughout the country. My grandfather was one of the people pouring roads for the Illinois Interstate Highway Act. But it created a very fast conduit to get people to move out to the suburbs. And so suburbs started growing, and businesses moved out to the suburbs. And, you know, Chicago, I'm from Chicago. It's a city that's known for that, we call it the white flight. It was definitely something that harmed the inner city of Chicago. And so, you know, that was one moment in time, I think, that has exacerbated over many years and created a vacuum in a lot of cities. We started seeing the changes, you know, in the late 80s and early 90s where cities started coming back, Chicago being one of them. People started living in the cities more. And I think, you know, there's a lot of reasons to why we are where we are. But in Austin in particular, you know, the zoning has been very, very low density anywhere but downtown. And that is not traditional in a lot of big cities. That's very, you know, that's symptomatic of Austin.
Big cities in the Northeast.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
exactly. So it's an interesting sort of issue that we've dealt with, and I think starting with, you know, the Code Next was one of the first, you know, attempts to try to get some more greater density in areas that weren't just on corridors. And I think what we've seen with the shift with Home 1 and Home 2 is greatly increasing density in a very incremental way in the rest of the fabric of the city. You know, we're looking at some of the 3-unit SF3 lots for clients that we're getting up to 20 units per acre.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
imagine, you know, I don't want to say too much, but a project that we're looking at going from 1 to 3, 4, 5, 6 units potentially. You can imagine, you know,
The density multiplier that the city can achieve now just off of the new code is
Off of that alone.
it's exponential.
Yes.
And I want to add something I'm excited about. So, like, a lot of the stuff we work on is we kind of find the cheat codes and all of this. There's a few that I'm excited about, but one of them in particular is the new 2024 code change where you can now do horizontal separation between floors in the residential code, which you couldn't do before. And so now you can build
stacked duplex,
duplexes, right?
which we used to be able to build 50 years ago.
Right.
Then we lost the technology.
Yeah.
Now we got the technology.
And we got it back. But
Yeah.
like, you know, the way I think about it is like, if every house sells, and it's all based on cost of square foot, right? So it's a sales price by square foot. Well, I'll just pick a number, $500 a square foot. If you're gonna build a unit and sell it, and let's say it's a 3-story house, and you do that multiplication, there are people who can't afford that home. But if you put a 1-story unit on the bottom and a 2-story unit above that, suddenly you've got half the price for that neighborhood or that area, that now somebody who is, you know, has enough money to buy a small home, but it's not going to be feasible because you can't just do a, you know, 700 square foot home.
Yep.
Right. But you can so now you have more, like a little bit more you have different buyers that can live in the same neighborhood, and you can increase sort of the fabric of that neighborhood. And that's something I'm pretty excited about. I don't know if it's realistic or not.
But we're looking at a lot of projects
think
like
it's
that right now.
Yeah.
It's
Have y'all
these,
seen one built yet? The stacked duplex?
I mean, not in residential code, but yes, obviously, we've done that plenty with.
and
the commercial
it's
code.
not dissimilar to like the 3 flat in Chicago, or these typologies have been around. Just they've been illegal in a lot of places, like most places, especially in Texas.
Yeah.
So just these small incremental code changes, allowing for just very pragmatic, smaller size unit housing, just that automatically just brings in a bigger market, a bigger pool.
And there's some great examples of this, in Clarksville, over off 11th, 12th Street, stacked duplexes, quadplexes that were done in I assume the 50s and the 60s.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's a use case for stacked duplex versus just
I mean, we're doing
side
one
by
right
side?
now. It's a remodel,
Yeah.
so it's not quite the same, but it's a 2-story, and we're separating it. We have a stair that's off to the side that goes straight up.
Programmatically, it's easier to separate up and down versus side to side.
That scenario, yeah.
Impervious cover
Yeah.
too. Right.
Yeah, impervious cover is a thing, and also just there's on any MF site, you can arrange units in creative ways, and so being able to stack different units instead of doing like a traditional double loaded corridor, let's say, it allows you to sort of have the density of an apartment building, but also allowing people to have a front door, which is a big thing that I think we see in urban infill neighborhoods, is that we're asking people to not necessarily live in a detached single family home anymore. And so we want to make sure we get through those hurdles by giving people still maybe a front door, maybe still giving them a small yard out in front. So, it's typology wise, it's just an interesting typology to mix into sort of these neighborhoods. And I think the single stair building is another typology that kind of fits this sort of small multifamily scale that we're seeing pop up more and more.
You guys are pretty excited about the single stair, and
Yeah.
you want to talk about that first?
That one. Let me just finish my crusade here. So in the cheat code, so there's a single stair version that I'm really excited about that I can't wait until it gets built. But there's one where you're 3 stories, 2 units per floor, with just basic sprinkler that any builder can do. It's not complicated. There's no riser room. It's an open stair in that scenario, so it's kind of like a walk up, and it really has to fit for like the right demographic and the right location, the right area. There's a fit for it, I think, where the costs are down. There's no elevator, and you're really like bringing this ability to do maximized, like residential homes on a small footprint with as little infrastructure as possible. I'm excited for that one to happen whenever it happens.
Well, so the single stair, I think, I don't remember who, you all have talked to me about it at this point, multiple times. And I don't know if I still really fully comprehend the benefit that is now offered to us with this, because it was approved, single stair was approved in the latest legislative session, correct?
It was approved in Austin earlier this year,
Okay.
up to 5 stories, and SB. I'll get the
20
number.
something.
I'll get the number wrong, but allotted up to six stories.
Okay.
And it's well, yeah. Sorry, I'll get.
So for the small scale developers out there, what does this mean for them? Like, what sort of opportunities does this unlock that we're
Yeah. So
boxed out?
there's when we think about the types of homes we can build in the city, our toolbox or our catalog historically has been single family homes, maybe an AB condition, but a single family detached home, and either wraps, the big, as they say, Texas donuts, lovingly, Texas donuts, high rises, right? So, these are 2 very different building typologies, right? And they're very far apart from each other. So if I'm a builder, this is really the only hammer, that I have, or it's the only tool that I have in my tool chest, my toolbox. So now what we're saying is, because of a few pretty lightweight changes to the way Austin adopts the IBC, as well as some land use changes. We're opening up, hundreds of building types in between this single family and this really, heavy, large scale institutional project. And so what we think is, it's not going to be institutional guys going down. It's probably going to be the smaller infill builders who are now able to look at a lot of different options for any given site. And I think that's going to make it the opportunity much more interesting. You bring a lot more people to the neighborhoods that they're building because they're going to be able to build at a higher density, but also the quality of construction I think will go up because, you're not kind of hamstrung into really strange conditions and requirements that, end up leading to kind of a suboptimal outcome.
I think you said something really important there, at least for our listeners, which is that this opportunity is now something that, if anything, is going to let a smaller home builder that's used to building single family, maybe A, B units, now scale up to a little bit higher density without a complete different typology, right? Without basically being tooled as a commercial GC.
Absolutely. Yeah, I spent quite some time actually doing a study on this internally, and I kind of like modeled it after, I don't know the name of it, but there's this idea that like if you can do one push-up, you can do 10 push-ups. If you can do 10 push-ups, then you can do one pull-up. If you can do 10 pull-ups, then you can do and you sort of like, and by the end of the video, right, you're doing crazy things, and it all started from like one push-up. And so this concept is the same thing. It's like if you can do a duplex, then you can do a stacked flat. And if you can do a stacked flat, then you can do up to 3 floors. Jumping above 3 floors tends to be a big jump for builders. And so you would have to do 3 floors for a while till you get kind of good with it and comfortable with it before you go to 4 and 5 floors, because the equipment changes, right? You're starting to add like different crews, right? The costs are going to jump dramatically because of that, because of material handling. Typically, your elevator is going to start costing more, your fire sprinklers going to start costing more. And so there are these little like incremental plateaus that we can illustrate for builders to kind of show where they are. And I've got it lined out so it's like you can be a rural like build on your lot home builder, and I can show you the path of how you can get there to building a 6-story single stair building in an amount of time that's sort of controlled by you.
But
right?
the single stair is kind of a moniker for being able to reduce your fire requirements, right?
Yeah.
Your fire separation requirements. We were just talking to a builder yesterday who's, can I build 5 stories without concrete? Without a one floor of concrete podium, because that's a big barrier to being able to scale up. It's like, actually you can, there is a way to get there. It's definitely not pure type 5 construction like you're used to, but it's not something, if the opportunity is exciting enough that you couldn't scale to pretty quickly.
Especially if you have somebody to help you, support you, have drawings that aren't just landing in your lap and you have to figure them out, Sure. And I will say that that path goes the other direction. There's also a builder who already has the skills for that type 1, and now they can do something that'll actually cut their costs down and they can be really effective at, because it's actually the same thing that they're doing, just a different format.
Yeah.
And they can apply it on different sites that they never could have applied it to before. So some of these, tons of these sites in Austin, you get a half-acre, third of an acre site that you used to put a triplex on, used to put 2 sets of duplexes on. Now you can put a single stair. You have more units. You have a totally different way to live.
And
right?
A single stair could be a stacked flat. It could be full floor flats.
Exactly.
But there's just so much.
It could be 1 unit
there.
per floor, really luxury, or it could be 4 units per floor to hit a student housing market. So it really provides
bundled stacked flats. You don't even have to go kind of full floor. You all the way to courtyard style buildings.
I just want to highlight, like, this is just what we do all day. And
Just sit around and
nerd out.
Yeah.
on
we
it.
just
Nerd
nerd
out
out on
on
this
all
stuff. Like the modularity of these solutions that we everybody in our office brings, in our whole company brings to this, is like, it makes it fun, it makes it really interesting, and it, like, we are at the forefront of changing these things. And I think if anybody had any complaints, it would be that the capital markets are a little not as ideal as they
Dicey.
could be.
Yeah.
Right now, yes, but for infill development of this scale also, because it's, it's not quite large enough to be a traditional institutional scale project, but it's maybe perceived as being riskier than, a traditional kind of, bank or hard money approach.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the private credit markets are getting so flooded with capital and interest right now that hopefully that particular segment will benefit from this flood of capital to we call private lenders, which is essentially hard money lenders. But I've seen it in in recent years. The amount of capital that's chasing those type of loans, those private loans, is unreal. A lot of a really big backing. So hopefully that'll help bridge the gap.
Well, there's a point at which, I've been saying this for pretty much all year, is like people say like, oh, well, nobody's building right now. That's just not true. Like people have businesses, they have families, they have employees. They have to, you know this as well as anybody. You don't just shut the doors, you keep building, you keep doing it. And you take the conditions that are there and you keep working. And so I think some of that like, oh, nobody's building mentality is actually harming the industry right now. And, banks, they don't make money not lending money. They make money when they lend money. So they're lending money and they're going to continue to lend money. And there's a point at which, their bottom line starts to get harmed if they don't just start making it easier for people to build. I think that's coming. I've seen it improve over the last couple of months for sure.
There's no shortage of construction in the neighborhoods where we build, at least. I can't speak for everyone else, but when we're driving around our neighborhoods, there's plenty of homes that are going up.
People got to live somewhere.
Yeah. SB 840.
Yeah.
Let's hit on that. So you want to give us kind of the overview of what opportunities that's unlocked?
Yeah, so SB 840 we think is the most consequential land use change, certainly the last 50 years, at least since the 1980s. That's maybe a little less than 50 years, but it's effectively a statewide mandate for cities over, I think it's 150,000 people to set a minimum density or to preempt density mandates for commercially zoned land. So that's a really fancy way of saying if there's somebody in a city, a large city, say Austin, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, on and on, if you want to build a residential project, a multifamily project on a commercially zoned piece of land, the city has to by right allow you to do so, right? And then two, the city cannot mandate or require or limit your density, your height, your FAR beyond certain limits. I'll try and break that down even further. It means that we can build multifamily and residential on commercially zoned land in big cities, and we can do it at the kind of missing middle scale that we're talking about, between 36 to 54 units per acre. So the statewide bill says 36 units per acre, which is a great missing middle scale density. 36 units per acre is probably somewhere between Clarksville and Seaholm in density. Clarksville is probably closer to 18 units per acre.
And it's completely overriding all city mandates.
Yes.
Which is the contentious part.
Yeah, it's because each city is currently interpreting it slightly differently. So what we're finding is that Austin has a very conservative look at it. They're not including multifamily lots in there, whereas in Dallas, they're taking a much less conservative approach to it and applying it to any
PDs.
Yeah, PDs, anything.
So Dallas is using this as an opportunity to override some of their legacy land use requirements.
So here in Austin, we're not letting MF owned properties benefit from that. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's what we're hearing. We've got our ear to a lot of different groups talking.
Yeah.
So when you have 50 years of land use policy kind of pile up, right? Because every time you try and amend your code to allow for something, inevitably that means you are creating conflicts elsewhere. And this is no different, right? So you want to set standards for multifamily use, but not to multifamily zone districts, because effectively that means that you don't have development standard. Like, why have multiple MF densities or multiple MF districts if you're going to override them all effectively? So Austin is being conservative. I don't think because they want to be, but because it's the consequences downstream to the land development code are not fully realized or understood yet. But it's very easy to say, let's build multifamily on commercially zoned land. There's a lot of LR, GR zone. Yeah. Especially in some of our favorite neighborhoods, there's commercial zoning that is very kind of strip mall-like in its development pattern. It's 50% impervious cover, 50% building cover. That suggests a land use or a development pattern of surface parking lots surrounding a single small building. So written into the land use code is a strip mall density. And those types of projects and that type of land is, it's sitting in Allendale, it's sitting in, central Austin. It's even, kind of, near Hyde Park and other places, definitely South Austin. Some of the most exciting places to live in Austin are kind of locked up by this suburban strip mall-like zoning.
And this is part of what your software is solving for now. You can go in and look for these kind of opportunities.
Look for them and underwrite their potential, their change.
Yeah, implemented a tool that you requested, and it's I told the guys, the engineering team, I was like, this is a game changer.
Yeah, good.
This is it.
All right, well, every once in a while I can add something of value. So,
no. And we were looking. We had developed this very sophisticated search tool, and one thing that we've learned is that builders are very sophisticated in the field, but they're not always sitting behind a computer, piling through or searching through hundreds and maybe thousands of properties to try and find like the unique gem, right? Most of the time, the opportunities are coming through the relationships that you've built, and then when they do come through, you need to quickly underwrite what the potential is. Yeah. And so we've historically tried to focus on, how do we build software that once you get that phone call, you get that email, I can know within a few seconds or a few minutes what the potential is here and whether I should do some further diligence or if it's just a no-go. But we've always, as the nerds we are, we've always been very excited about the ability to just search the city and find the best opportunities. We kind of put that down, but then one of our last conversations, Nate was like, yes, if Jared says that this is a valuable feature, we'll build it in a different way. And so we built it in the kind of heads up view so that when you're looking at a neighborhood, because I think we were on a call at one point and you're like, I just want to look at 34th Street and see what's going on over there,
Yeah. That for us is really valuable because our acquisitions guys, they need that kind of holistic view.
Pan and scan.
That's what you want to do. You want to start from a very high level top-down approach, and then you zoom in intentionally.
I wore out the fire emoji button on my keyboard when I saw the video for that.
Any other hot topics that we're missing before we wrap up?
Kind of want to flip the script and ask you some questions.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I'm curious as a builder, how do you think about all this change? Clearly you're excited about it, but
I am, because we, for almost all of my career, we dabbled in some like small boutique townhome communities long time ago, back in like 2013, 2014. And I went through those projects, especially having built them in the city of Austin, and retreated with my tail between my legs because it was such a terrible process.
Yeah.
And
I thought, to a few of your podcasts on this.
Yeah. So I thought, how can someone I was amazed at Story Build. Now that was y'all's singular focus. Mm-hmm. So I get that you just had this extremely adept team that could manage, all of the landmines. And that's what it was. It was a process that was just laden with landmines everywhere. And so if you weren't Story Built, I think that the risk reward was completely skewed against you. And I learned that the hard way, because like our first townhome project we did, I think it was like $500,000 over budget. And this was costs, I think what, 12, 13 years ago. Wow. $500,000 on a smaller scale project. Like, that was a big overage that they hit us with just off of, and we had a really good team, a team of engineers and project consultants that you all would know here. So people that were experienced, like we hired a bunch of yahoos that were just, yes men. I mean, like, we had good advisory, and they still came back and hit us with all this. So I thought, okay, I just don't see how this makes sense. I'm just going to stick with single family building, which is just easier. It just feels like, but, and I love it. I love what we do, but there is a part of me that thinks, I'd love to, it's amazing being able to sell these $5-8 million homes to great clients and great families, but there's also a lot of really good families out there that want to get in one of our homes that can afford $2.5 million or $3 million. And with the land code the way it has been, the only way to achieve that is to go buy cheaper land and build to a lower quality standard, in my opinion. Okay. And so all of this is unlocked, and why I'm so excited about it and why I'm looking forward to us partnering on some projects is because I now see for the first time this opportunity to get to this more achievable price point on a few projects. We're going to keep doing our bread and butter. We're not getting away from that, but we're going to expand into a little bit lower price point with some higher density homes, while still being able to maintain that same quality that for me is non-negotiable. And so that right there is the opportunity that I see and why I'm excited about it.
I love that. Yeah. I feel like, we're aligned in that, like that scenario I played where you got the opportunity to get two different families in the same building, living in an area that, again, just enhancing the fabric. It's so huge.
I'll tell you one challenge, and this is going to be interesting to see how all this gets worked through. So it's just like with what you all were saying, Dallas is interpreting these state laws now a little different than Austin. And I assume that probably the only way that stuff was going to really get reconciled is it's going to have to be in court. Yeah. That's probably already underway, but you're going to have some precedent to really understand how cities have to interpret this, I would think. The same thing so like in our neighborhoods where we build, which are more affluent neighborhoods, the deed restrictions were often written to prevent, in a lot of areas, anything other than one single family home there. So now you've got these conflicting capabilities insofar as City of Austin. You go buy a lot in one of these affluent neighborhoods of Austin, and City of Austin says, we don't care, go build 2 or 3 houses on here because that's what we allow you to do now. But then you have this other layer, deed restrictions, the intent to create this density has yet another hurdle in certain areas due to these deed restrictions that were written, these NIMBY deed restrictions that were written back in the 40s or 50s or whenever. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see how that gets reconciled.
Yeah, I think the title companies are going to have to, no one would have ever said this, but the title companies are going to have to lead the way.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And for me, like, we tend to be a little more conservative, and so we've got to have those precedents already established.
And you don't want to hurt other builders as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We don't want to be the first one out of the gates with some of that. But that's why, we're looking for properties that do have deed restrictions that are less problematic, and then we can implement some of these concepts that we're looking at with you guys. So I think it's going to be a fun next few years, and kind of back to Dan's point earlier. I mean, financing's it's a little bit weird right now, but construction's still happening, and I think that I've seen at least this year locally the market has turned a corner and is starting to regain some strength. So I think that combination of hopefully a market that's taken its medicine over the last few years and really fallen back to its long-term trend line, and then some of these beneficial code and law amendments will make for fun next few years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to, I'm always plugging Austin, but it's my assumed home and I love this place, but I really do think Austin has the opportunity to do something that really has been done in the United States, which is build a denser, more walkable city, a lot more opportunity for a lot more folks, like on a single family fabric, right? Like the cities that we look to in the United States that are dense and walkable and have kind of all of this, sort of critical mass of industry and amenities and all of this, they were sort of built before the car. They were built before kind of single family zoning kind of dominated the city. We're not getting rid of single family zoning. Nobody wants that, but we're creating more opportunities. And I think Austin's going to be on the forefront of rethinking what a city looks like when we actually go back. We actually go back and we reprogram and re-underwrite a lot of what's possible across, a majority of the parcels.
Yeah, 100%.
And builders will lead the way.
This is so off topic, but I noticed Kyle's whoop there.
Yeah.
So context for the listeners. It's got a brand new baby. I'm just looking at your whoop like that is so masochistic. Looking at your sleep score when you got a brand new baby.
I stopped, yeah. No, and it's funny because now it does the biological aging.
Yeah. Oh, does it really?
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
And so
have you aged like a decade in the last few weeks?
Yeah, no, I've gone the opposite way.
Yeah.
And I wish there was I just had a baby, give me a break.
Yeah.
Button on there. I could just give me a break, guys.
Yeah.
But no, it just says your HRV sucks, and yeah.
You know what? It's not factoring. It's not factoring all that oxytocin that you get from loving a brand new baby. So that's that's the reversing factor.
The Aura ring.
That's what you've got.
Yeah.
The Aura.
Yeah.
That
has a don't leave me alone.
Does it?
You can turn it off for a day if you're sick or something's baby keeps you up. It'll just it'll track it, but it won't.
There's an actual condition that people have started following, and it's something like sleep app anxiety.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like the app or apnea?
Like that simply by tracking your sleep
it creates another level of anxiety.
It creates anxiety for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the first things I've gotten into a little bit of biohacking lately in my life. So
a little bit of biohacking.
A little.
Nobody ever says a little bit of biohacking.
Yeah. Just some casual biohacking. Yeah. But every morning I wake up, I look at my sleep score. It's my first thing. Everybody else opens up, looks at Instagram or whatever, and I'm how's my sleep score? Yeah, it's 89.
What are you doing? You got any tips?
Yeah, and I've got a Hume scale at home. That's like an in-body sort of DEXA scan.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does through the hand contact and the feet, so it tells you nice. All your stats, your hydration, subcutaneous fat, visceral fat, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Where's your whoop at?
I've lost it.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to get it out. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I like using it whenever I have it, but
yeah,
I cannot find it honestly.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about having kids is maybe a little bit more sentimental, a little bit more like when we talking about a couple of these projects, it's there's gonna be 6, 12, 18 kids now where there was maybe 2.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking these schools are gonna do great again. I don't know, there's just so many positives to it.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I want to make sure people know where to find you all who are interested in your software. Let's start there. So let's guide people to the Cedar software who might be interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's cedar.build, not cedar.com, cedar.build.
Okay.
We have recently reconfigured things a little bit. Most of our software is only available to the developers and builders that we're partnering really closely with.
Okay.
But, reach out. You can just contact at cedar.build or Kyle at cedar.build, and we can talk about it, get you set up. We're not trying to be too exclusive. We just the feedback loops that we get into with the developers that we're, and builders we're working with, kind of end to end, is just so valuable that we kind of want to keep it
That
close.
makes sense. Well, I think it's a good service for your developers and builders. So now let's talk about that. Where will you all design a project right now?
Texas is, bread and butter for us. We've got a couple projects in California. We've got some that we're starting in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So a little bit.
So the point is, if someone's interested, just reach out.
Oh,
Yeah,
Might as well.
yeah. We're primarily focusing on places where you are seeing this land use change happening at scale. Because we're just finding those markets to be a lot more interesting. There's a lot more activity, right? There are builders who are really trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's where we have a little more leverage. That's where we can bring more value. Bring the software in. We sort of set up kind of this advanced AI layer where we just index all of the land use regulations. And once we do that, a builder can, almost, again, within a few seconds, run through a series of questions and kind of work back and forth with our model and with us to get to an underwriting model and a project massing kind of design concept that almost 100% confident is buildable by right.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to this, and I don't know if it's going to go over, but I think is it going to go over?
Yeah.
Big shout out to Kristen though, because what you just said is actually really important, and it's really not normal. It's not the usual. So I think it's just important to highlight, when you're doing a massing study, when you're doing a site plan, they're not just blocks.
No, they're real buildings.
Yeah.
Everything's been fully vetted. We've done this before. We see the roadblocks. We see, we may not solve it for you during the feasibility study, but we'll certainly raise our hand and say, hey, this has been an issue for us before. This is a street that they always ask for an extra 15 feet of right of way or whatever it is. We really dig in to get people the info they need to really understand. There's the math yield, and then there's the real yield.
And they're real floor plans. So we have a catalog.
They're real floor plans.
We have a catalog of hundreds of floor plans that are.
Well, hundreds of products, right? It goes beyond. Even the floor
Sorry,
plan.
I'm minimizing it a little bit, but I'm also trying to illustrate for somebody who can't even imagine what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That at the very beginning, if we're talking about a project and you're looking at squares on paper next to circles, those squares are actual real
Buildings.
homes.
Yeah.
And we always have a little bit of a challenge. You probably have noticed this in talking about software versus services, right? And technology versus expertise. We're trying to move to a future where that is not such an awkward line, where software and technology and AI is allowing us to scale our expertise, right? And this is, I think, great that you bring up this point, right? That and partly why we have narrowed our scope and we're only partnering with a key set of builders and developers, because when we look at a site, we run all the traps, we run it through our model, but we design that project. And that design is built on decades of experience across thousands of homes and projects. And so it's really just about what is the best of both. There's an art and a science to building design and site planning. Let's let software and AI do the science, and let's let designers, Kristen, do the art. Yeah, well, once it comes together, it's magic, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's there's an incredible amount of risk that you take as a builder and kind of rote labor that an architect does to try and manage that risk. And that's kind of the perfect place for software and AI to support. But these projects, they are, we're building neighborhoods here. We're changing the city fabric, and they're incredibly challenging projects. Design is everything.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank y'all for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Great.
I actually see y'all tomorrow at 11 a.m.
That's
for a
right.
site walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you going to cut that part of the interview? Or?
I'm on my way to ACL.
Yeah.
We'll see if I.
Oh yeah?
I don't know if I'll come in my full.
You're going to show up in a professional attire?
I'll come up in my sleeveless.
You'll see what Dan does on the weekends.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see another side of Dan. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all. We'll do it again. Yeah.
Thanks.